What if Daenerys Targaryen's ending wasn't a writing mistake? What if buried underneath one of the most controversial finales in television history, there's an ancient prophecy that makes every single moment of her death make perfect sense? Not just sense, inevitable sense. Because here's what most people missed while they were busy being furious at Season 8. Game of Thrones was quietly telling you exactly how Daenerys had to die. And the answer was hiding in the oldest mythology in the entire franchise. Today, we're pulling that thread. Welcome to Movizo, where we go deeper than the surface. If you're new here, this is exactly what we do. Let's get into it. Most people walked away from Game of Thrones Season 8 with one conclusion. Daenerys' ending was rushed, unearned, and badly written. And honestly, on a character development level, that criticism is fair. Her turn felt abrupt. The build-up wasn't there the way it needed to be. But here's where things get interesting. There's a prophecy sitting at the absolute core of this entire franchise, one that Season 8 almost completely stops talking about right when it matters most. And when you map that prophecy onto what actually happens to Daenerys, something strange occurs. Her death stops looking like a mistake. It starts looking like it may have been part of a much larger mythological pattern. The prophecy is called the Azor Ahai legend. And once you understand it, you'll never see Daenerys the same way again. Let's start at the beginning, because this mythology is layered. Azor Ahai is the great mythical hero of the Lord of Light religion, a legendary champion who wields a sword called Lightbringer and defeats the forces of darkness. The prophecy says this hero will be reborn, referred to as the prince that was promised, a figure descended from Aegon the Conqueror himself. Now that already points directly at Jon Snow and Daenerys. Both Targaryens, both connected to Aegon's bloodline, both the last major players standing by the final season. But here's the part most casual viewers gloss over. Making Lightbringer the sword that gives Azor Ahai his power requires a sacrifice. Not just any sacrifice. The death of Azor's own wife. Her name was Nissa, and according to the legend, Azor Ahai had to personally drive the sword through her heart to unlock the blade's full power. Let that sit for a second. The hero's ultimate weapon is forged through the death of the person he loves most, at his own hand. Now look at what Jon Snow does in the Season 8 finale. He drives a blade through Daenerys' heart, the woman he loves, in front of the Iron Throne, after she's already won. That's why many fans see a strong parallel between Jon and Azor Ahai and between Daenerys and Nissa. Here's where the theory changes everything. The entire series positions both Jon and Daenerys as candidates for the prince that was promised. Melisandre, the show's leading Azor Ahai authority, backs multiple candidates before eventually landing on Jon. And crucially, the show keeps Jon alive through a series of near-impossible circumstances. He survives Hardhome. He survives the mutiny at Castle Black, literally gets resurrected. He survives the Battle of the Bastards. And then, in Season 8's Battle of Winterfell, he's seconds away from being killed by the undead dragon Viserion when Arya kills the Night King and saves his life. That last one is critical, because if Arya doesn't throw that dagger at exactly that moment, Jon Snow dies. The Night King wins, and nobody kills Daenerys in the finale, because there is no finale where Jon is in that throne room. Arya killing the Night King doesn't just save Winterfell. It preserves the entire Azor Ahai endgame. It keeps Jon on the board long enough to become the one who fulfills the prophecy, not by wielding a flaming sword, but by making the exact same sacrifice Azor Ahai made thousands of years ago. And Daenerys, according to this theory, she may have been filling the role of Nissa all along. Now here's why this reframing actually matters beyond just being a cool theory. Throughout the entire series, Daenerys fights to escape the role of sacrificial object. She refuses to be a political bargaining chip. She burns the men who try to control her. She builds her own army, earns her own power, and refuses to let anyone define her destiny. And then if this theory holds, the story quietly puts her in exactly that role anyway. Not as a villain, not as a hero, as a necessary sacrifice in someone else's prophecy. That's genuinely tragic in a way that goes beyond bad writing. It reframes her entire arc as a cosmic setup. The universe, or the Lord of Light, if you believe in that sort of thing, was always steering toward this moment. Daenerys ascending, Jon loving her, and then Jon having to make the one choice no Azor Ahai candidate could avoid, the death of the person he loves most, to bring peace to the realm. The problem isn't that the ending doesn't make mythological sense. The problem is that the show stopped talking about the mythology right when it needed it most. Season 8 drops the Azor Ahai thread almost completely. If even 2 or 3 scenes had connected these dots more clearly, the backlash might have looked very different. In my opinion, this is one of those theories that genuinely improves the source material, even if the show didn't fully execute it. The bones are all there. Jon as Azor Ahai, Daenerys as Nissa, Arya as the unlikely figure who makes the whole chain of events possible. It's elegant when you trace it properly. It's also possible that many of these mythological parallels were intentional, but the show never made that connection completely clear for viewers. Does it completely fix Season 8? No. The packing issues are real. The character development gaps are real. But does it make Daenerys' death more meaningful than most people give it credit for? Absolutely. She didn't just die because the story needed a shocking ending. Through the lens of this theory, her death becomes part of a much larger prophecy that may have been shaping events all along. Here's what I want to know from you. Does the Azor Ahai prophecy actually redeem Daenerys' ending? Or does it just make her tragic role in someone else's story even more frustrating? Because I can genuinely see both arguments. And I think where you land on that question says a lot about how you read this show. Drop your answer below. I'm reading every comment on this one. Game of Thrones gave us one of the most debated endings in television history. But sometimes, the most interesting answers aren't in what the show tells you directly. They're in what the mythology was quietly saying underneath it the whole time. If this breakdown hit different, subscribe to Movizo. We do this every week. We'll see you next time.